received during the year in which you apply determines your eligibility. For details on how to calculate disposable income or to learn about allowable deductions, please visit our website at piercecountywa.gov/ATR.
I have a disabled daughter. She is a homeowner who has been struggling. There was much that we didn't know how to do, and the Assessor Treasurer's Office did it for us. The staff is unbelievably helpful. It was easier than I ever expected.
This beneficial program helps to ensure low-income, retired, or disabled people don't have to do without other needs and wants, or even have to move out of their homes because they can't afford their property taxes. Apply today on our website or by calling the Senior Citizen and People with Disabilities Exemption Hotline at 253-798-2169.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Tuesday, October 1st meeting of the Pierce County Council. The time is 3:01 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Campbell.
Here.
Councilmember Kruver.
Here.
Councilmember Denson. Here. Councilmember Herrera.
Here.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Here.
Councilmember Morrell.
Excused.
Councilmember Mello.
Here.
You have 6 members present.
We have 6 members present and a quorum. Item number 3 is our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, our moment of silence, and our land acknowledgement. Last week, Pierce County lost Neil Van Lierop, a prominent figure in agriculture and owner of the very famous former Van Lierop bulb farm in Puyallup, which is now the site of Farm 12 and the nonprofit Step by Step. Van Lierop will be remembered for his contagious work ethic and innovative spirit. The Pierce County Council would also like to acknowledge the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene, which as of today, the death toll reaches 160 lives in our country's southeast. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag led by Councilmember Herrera, followed by a moment of silence dedicated to the life of Neil Van Lierop and the victims of Hurricane Helene. And then the land acknowledgement read by Councilmember Herrera. Please rise.
I.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish tribes. The Coast Salish people have lived and stewarded these lands since time immemorial and continue to do so today. We recognize that the land acknowledgement is one small step toward true stewardship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the indigenous people of this land.
Thank you, Councilmember Herrera. We're now at section 4, which is the approval of our agenda. Are there any objections to approving today's agenda as presented? Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved. On today's council agenda, there will be multiple opportunities for public comment. On the consent agenda, you may provide comment on any final action item. This does not include items placed on the consent agenda simply for introduction or scheduling. On today's consent agenda, there is 1 set of minutes for approval, 3 appointment resolutions for final hearing, and 1 grant approval. Those are all subject to public comment. Then during section 8 of the agenda, we will take public comment on each resolution individually. And then finally, under community forum, there will be an opportunity to address the council on any topic that is not up for final action on today's agenda. For more information on the rules for public participation, please review the bottom of page 1 of today's agenda. That brings us to section 5, the consent agenda. Does any member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda? Vice Chair Campbell.
And I'm just double checking. I have 1 name. We haven't had any of the other names signing in. Okay. I would move approval of the consent agenda as amended, moving item C2C to section 8 of the agenda.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of moving item C to C to section 8 of our agenda. This is a public hearing on the remaining final action items on our consent agenda. Any member of the public wish to provide comment starting here in council chambers on our final action items on our consent agenda? Not seeing any. Mr. Dominique, anybody in our Zoom room?
For any member of the public wishing to provide comment on the final action items on today's consent agenda, please press the raise hand icon on Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda?
Councilmember Kruver.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson. Aye. Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 6 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 6 ayes and 0 nays, the consent agenda is adopted. We're at Section 6, messages from the executive and other county elected officials. There's one message from the executive transmitting the following ordinance, which was vetoed on September 24th, 2024. It was Ordinance 2024-543S3. This was our summer supplemental budget that the executive chose to veto. For the public's information, we will be addressing a mid-biennial budget adjustment later this year. We anticipate around Thanksgiving or by the first week of December, most likely. And the council will be, again, considering these very important investments that we put forward for building affordable housing, addressing the homelessness crisis, and the opioid crisis. The majority of the council's incredibly disappointed and concerned at this veto, as it sets us back on really serious progress on addressing the opioid crisis. We funded mobile treatment for mobile medically assisted treatment for the significant opioid crisis. We funded 500 units of new affordable housing and significantly increasing investments in our homelessness response system. And this veto really sets us back. But the council, I know, is committed to working together to put another budget in front of the executive that will address these many community priorities and more. We're at Section 7, proclamations, recognitions, awards, and presentations. Today, the Pierce County Council proclaims October 2024 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Pierce County. I'd like to invite the following recipients to the podium as Councilmember Herrera reads this proclamation into the record. We have Kyle Robinson from our sister's house. Kai, excuse me, not Kyle. Apologies for my misreading. Kai, welcome. We also have Craig Roberts, Director of the Crystal Judson Justice Center. And if there's other guests you have, thank you for being here. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. A proclamation of the Pierce County Council proclaiming October 24th as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Pierce County. Whereas domestic violence is a pattern of behavior that one person uses to gain power and control over one another that can include isolation from friends and family, financial, emotional, and physical abuse, and sexual assault. Domestic violence knows no boundaries, impacting everyone regardless of race, religion, age, gender, sexual orientation, or any other status and geographical locations. And whereas domestic violence is a public health issue that affects all of us in seen and unseen ways. And to address it, we must apply our collective attention and resources to help end the cycles of violence that feed into the myriad of other health issues affecting our neighbors and communities, including homelessness, mental and behavioral health issues, and substance abuse disorder. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month is a national campaign dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence, every October, organizations and individuals unite across the nation for a national effort to uplift the needs, voices, and experiences of survivors. And the Pierce County Council is proud to join this effort. The theme for 2024 is Heal, Hold, and Center. The Pierce County Council is committed to embracing the many ways we can heal from violence and oppression, commit to holding space for survivors, and center those most marginalized in our efforts to end domestic violence. And whereas the Pierce County Council has made a concerted effort to improve the county's approach in gender-based violence services and appropriating $500,000 in the 2024-25 biennium to implement recommendations from a report commissioned by the county's Performance Audit Committee to improve the local support system for survivors. These recommendations include placing an advocate coordinator on location at the county city building, improving access to civil legal aid, and aiding mobile advocacy capabilities, and among other recommendations. And whereas partnerships with community organizations, healthcare providers, and the many people within our justice system to help provide supports for survivors, including trauma-informed advocates and supports for those seeking help. And whereas when survivors are ready, they don't have to go it alone. There are local resources to help, including the Pierce County Domestic Violence Helpline at 1-800-764-2420. The YWCA Pierce County 24-hour hotline at 253-383-2593. The Crystal Judson Family Center at 253-798-4166. Our Sister's House at 253-383-4275. And the Puyallup Tribe of Indians Community Domestic Violence Advocacy Program at 253-680-5499. And Rebuilding Hope Sexual Assault Center for the Pierce County at 253-474-7273. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this first day of October 2024 by the Pierce County Council that October 24, 2024 is Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Pierce County. This month, we reaffirm our steadfast and unwavering commitment to help survivors of domestic violence where they are and work tirelessly to provide the systems and supports they need to heal, hold spaces for them to rebuild their lives and share their stories, and center our efforts to ensure no one is left behind, including those most marginalized in our county. Pierce County Council.
Let's give a round of applause. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your incredibly serious and important work. We'd love to hear from you.
Hello, council members. Thank you for honoring us with this proclamation. So I'm Kai Robinson, and I'm the Deputy Director here at Our Sister's House. And Kelly Robinson, our Executive Director, and I felt it was important for you guys to see the advocates who are on the front lines and doing this groundwork. We have been in this community for nearly 30 years, providing domestic violence advocacy and intimate partner advocacy. As Councilman Herrera said, as domestic violence doesn't leave anyone alone, matter no race nor gender, we have decided to put together a domestic violence high-risk assessment team working with the FJC, the police, and the prosecutors to establish a team that will help our clients recognize when they are at high risk in their DV relationships. Once again, we are very thankful for this honor and ready to start this month as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you for leading us. Does anyone else wish to provide any remarks?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Again, thank you for your tremendous support. I can report back to you that with that $500,000 in funding, it's already gone out to RFP to increase our community's civil legal representation, also to have an advocate coordinator in the clerk's office, kind of directing traffic of those who are experiencing the system. We also got word last week that we received a $1 million federal grant that we're going to be continuing to address the issues that the Battered Women's Justice Project recommended. This one will be development of a co-responder system for victims of domestic violence. So again, thank you for the proclamation. Good to see you.
Thank you for all your good work. You don't have to, but we welcome your remarks if you would like to.
We'd just like to say, or I'd like to say, this is more than an honor, it's a privilege. And to be in connection with community here doing our domestic violence advocacy work. And it is important understanding that in my lifetime, domestic violence will not end, but we are working to move our survivors to our victims to the survivor status, the healing status, and in the healing status, they will be able to walk away empowered and knowing that they are on their way up.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Thank you to all of you. Before we invite you up here to take a photo with us and receive the proclamation, let me see what remarks my colleagues have. Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. Many of you are aware that I spend quite a bit of time working within the domestic violence service and sexual assault service providers, trying to figure out how we can improve services. I would really like them all to not have a busy job, is really what we're going for. And it's just an honor and privilege to work every day with all of the different organizations that were listed in that proclamation. And they all have a place in a space, but the way they've worked together over the last couple of years, especially coming out of the pandemic, has just been really phenomenal. I think we are a stronger unit to address the needs in our community and almost do gap stop. If something goes wrong, they can refer to someone else if there's not capacity. And I think that that's kind of a growing network between the providers that really came out organically through the work during COVID. Again, I always look for silver linings from COVID. So just appreciate the work that you all do in our county to help survivors and victims, and education so people can maybe change behaviors before they become problematic is one of the areas that I'm most excited about as we're looking forward to try and reduce that. So thank you for your advocacy and work and being here this afternoon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair, and I thank you for all the work that you do in providing safe places for people to go. And, you know, I think we talked about it last year. Many years ago, society just thought this was a family issue. It was quiet. It was something that people silently suffered alone. Working as a police officer, I've seen the impacts and the cycle, that a domestic violence incident affects not just the victim, but the children who witnessed it. It affects them for the rest of their lives, and it's not good for families. Things have changed a lot over the decades, and even just the last 2 decades, on some of the things we provide in safe places for folks. I heard that we changed some things here, even at the county, to where it makes it easier for people to file protection orders and things like that. I mean, it's a really big leap for people to do it for the first time. Many are very young and don't know anything or don't know where to go, don't even want to tell their dad, right? They're kind of alone a little bit in this at first. But we really appreciate the, what you do, and then talking about it out here in the public is something very important. And I'll say this right now that, domestic violence is not part of nobody's culture. Ancient culture, modern culture, and the future culture. And no matter what, like we said, no matter what culture you come from, it's not part of anybody's culture. So thank you for being here. And thank you, council members, for jumping on board this. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Herrera. Councilmember Coover.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say how grateful we are for your heart to be able to do this, and amazed at your ability to compartmentalize what you deal with, because it can't be easy, what you see, what you know, and what you deal. And I just wanted to commend you for that and assure how grateful we are for what you do. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Coover. Vice Chair Campbell.
I, too, will add on to the thanks. With deep sincerity, having been on the board of Crystal Judson Center now for close to 12 years, I think, off and on. So, getting immersed in the work and seeing and getting some of that data and talking with survivors firsthand, it really is an uphill battle that we have out there. And what we addressed 12 years ago is different than what we need and the tools we need to address many of the issues that we have today. Working on one with someone who's from another state fleeing domestic violence, and digitally, their abuser was able to track them down within 6 hours. And so, trying to find a safe place for them here locally, 3,000 miles away from where they came from, while they're receiving texts of the person showing their drive across the country as they're getting closer and closer. And so incredibly, scary out there these days. And as we see with domestic violence, the increasing of lethality of many of them, and particularly where firearms may be involved, it's not just, many times the intended victims, but others within the family, and I've worked on several extremely sad cases, and so I appreciate the work that you guys do day in and day out. You're literally saving lives, hundreds of them, and changing and breaking that cycle in the families. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell. I'm so grateful for the many organizations as well who do this work every day, and my colleagues who have provided leadership in this space for some time. It's such important work. One of the things that Councilmember Hitchen said that really stuck with me is reducing behaviors before they can become violent. So many of our organizations are so rightfully focused on supporting victims and turning them into survivors, helping get them out of harm's way. We've been working for years as a community to destigmatize domestic violence so that more folks feel comfortable calling it out, because it's all of our problem, and it's not a normal thing in anyone's culture, as Councilmember Herrera very rightfully states. So you're right, we've been doing this really important culture shift work of calling it out, destigmatizing it, empowering people to speak out and learn how to find services and survive. And again, what Councilmember Hitchens said about helping to get at those perpetrators. So absolutely we center the work of victims and protecting victims, and we got to figure out how to stop this cycle. And it's not very politically popular to say that we're going to invest in perpetrators and stop the cycle of the ones who are actually perpetrating the violence. But if we are serious about stopping this cycle of domestic violence, we absolutely have to figure out how to do that. Our staff and I visited Pierce County Alliance recently, where we learned about a program where they do just this. They work with perpetrators who are offenders, right? They went through criminal proceedings and identified as domestic violence offenders. And Pierce County Alliance, for one, has a program in our community to get at that behavior and stop that cycle of that behavior, so they don't do it again to the next person and the next person. So, we don't talk a lot about that. I think we need to figure out how to do that. We have to both continue to absolutely center victims, continue to turn them into survivors, and we got to really resource our efforts to stop this cycle and help change that behavior of these perpetrators. Before they become perpetrators, absolutely, to the extent we can prevent it, and when we have known perpetrators in our community, we've got to help address those issues and stop them from reoccurring as perpetrators. So thank you. We have a lot of work to continue to do together. We're so privileged to do this work with you and help lift up your very important work. We'd love for you to come all the way up here and accept this proclamation on the community's behalf. Well, next, the council is quite honored to proclaim the week of September 30th through October 6th as Week Without Driving in Pierce County. I'd like to invite Cecilia Black, community rights organizer with Disability Rights Washington, to the podium as Councilmember Hitchen reads this proclamation into the record.
Chair, we're also going to have Tony Hester to the podium with.
Welcome to both of you. You have a handheld mic.
We do.
And then there's a podium right in front of you as well. Welcome.
A proclamation of the Pierce County Council proclaiming the week of September 30 through October 6, 2024 as Week Without Driving in Pierce County, Washington. Whereas access to mobility is one of Washington State's 6 transportation system policy goals, including investing public dollars to improve the movement of people throughout Washington State. And whereas in 2021, the Disability Mobility Initiative launched the Week Without Driving campaign to challenge our leaders to better understand the barriers non-drivers experience in accessing our communities. And whereas transportation is a fundamental part of health and community connection, allowing Pierce County community members to reach education and employment opportunities, medical services, shopping, recreational activities, and visits with friends and family. And whereas about 25% of the population cannot or do not drive, which means 1 in 4 people depend on public transit and people they know to get around. And whereas public transportation and a strong network of sidewalks and bike paths aren't available in every community in Pierce County, making it much more difficult to get around, visit family and friends, and take care of everyday tasks for those who cannot or do not drive. And whereas improvements in walking and bike paths can improve alternate forms of mobility in communities across Pierce County and our state, and public driver education initiatives can help educate drivers to have patience and understanding for those traveling by means other than a vehicle. And whereas participating in the hashtag Week Without Driving challenge will bring more awareness and understanding to leaders and the community about how the lack of adequate transportation can impact people's ability to work, see doctors, make appointments, access education and childcare, procure goods, services, recreation, and entertainment in their own communities. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this first day of October 2024 by the Pierce County Council that September 30 through October 6, 2024 is recognized as Week Without Driving in Pierce County, Washington, and community members are encouraged to use public transportation, walk, ride a bike, or use ride-sharing options to include carpooling for their everyday travel needs. Thank you, Chair.
Give them a round of applause. Tony, Cecilia, who wants to go first? Which one is it?
Should be handheld.
Okay.
Should be on now.
Thank you, Brian.
Sorry about that.
Cool, thanks. My name is Cecilia Black, and I am a community organizer at Disability Rights Washington, where I work with people with disabilities and non-drivers on the transportation barriers that face the disability community. And I just want to thank you for proclaiming Week Without Driving this week. There's, about a third of Washingtonians cannot drive, and we think about, non-drivers living in areas that are really rich in transit, and we know that that's just not true. And when you're driving through your car, I think there's really easy concepts to understand about our transportation system, like we need buses or light rails. But when you actually experience and rely on public transit, there's just so much nuance that's missed when you're not experiencing it yourself. For example, what are the sidewalks? What does a street feel like walking alongside a busy or a quiet street to get to the bus? Is there a shelter what does it actually mean to have bus frequency at half hour or an hour, and how can you get to everything that you need to get to in a day when you can't rely on a car. So really just thank you, and I hope you take this challenge seriously, because we know that most of our elected leaders do have access to a car. We also know it's really hard. It is really hard to get to all the community events and all of the meetings and just all of the different, all of the different spaces you need to be as an elected leader when you have to rely on transit. And that's one of the reasons why non-drivers are so underrepresented when we think about who our decision makers are. And so we really ask you to take this challenge seriously and reflect when you do have to drive on what you would have to give up or what you couldn't participate in if you didn't have access to a car.
Celia. Tony, there's a microphone right in front of you, Tony, at the... You can use that one. Go ahead. Yeah.
This one?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh, it's low.
It's
I can pick it up.
There you go.
Oh, okay. There we go. Good evening, council members. As you know, my name is Amin Tony Hester. It was stated before, I am a representative for the Center for Independence, as well as the chair of the Tacoma Area Commission on Disabilities, as well as a member of the Pierce County Accessible Communities Advisory Committee, as well as the vice chair of the Pierce Transit Community Transportation Advisory Group. So I have a lot of experience in transportation, a lot of lived experience as a disabled person. And not only everything that Cecilia said was true, but I think in order for you to even understand what transportation equity means and what it entails, you have to go through what those who cannot drive go through every day. We stand out in the rain, we stand out in the cold, we miss Ubers, we miss buses, we miss taxis, we have to walk, and some of us have to walk either blind or in wheelchairs or with other mobility issues. Some in pain, some not in pain. And you don't understand the extremity of it all until you actually go through it yourself. So taking this challenge and having this challenge not only be for Washington State but nationwide is a great eye-opener, not only for yourselves but for everyone else as well. So I appreciate the proclamation, and we thank you for those that have taken the challenge and those that are supporting the challenge. Because without your support, we can't have true equity, because you are the decision makers. You are the ones who bring equity into play. So we appreciate your help. We appreciate your support. And again, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Tony, before I open it up for remarks from others, can you share a little bit about the new visual aids that Pierce Transit recently launched that I know you were a part of?
Yes, I was one of the leading, I guess you could say, I don't want to say instigators, but one of the leading people involved in that program. And we just put up the pilot program downtown Tacoma on 10th and Commerce. There are 7 accessible signs. The signs contain large print, raised print, and Braille. And what they have on them are the route numbers, the bus stop number, and the telephone number to call in case you need assistance. And this was also a great step forward in accessibility and equity, because I know for myself, when I catch the bus, or used to catch the bus a lot, getting at bus stops and not knowing what buses come there unless I planned it a great deal ahead of time. But if I wanted to spontaneously walk to a bus stop, or I was at a friend's house, I don't know what bus routes are there. I have to wait until a bus passes, or I then have to call Pierce Transit and figure out, okay, what buses come here. This makes traveling independently a lot easier. It makes it so that I don't necessarily have to do that. I still may have to plan out my route, but at least I know where to go. If you tell me zone Z, I can find zone Z, because those bus stops, the accessible bus stops, also tell you what zone you are in. And for those of us that read Braille, this is great, because we couldn't read print. A person that can't read print, I can't see what bus stop is here, what bus sign says. So this is, for me, this was an incredible push, and I want to thank you personally, Chair Mello, because you helped me get this push started. So I appreciate it. And again, it was a wonderful thing, and it is a wonderful thing. And we're hoping to spread this throughout the Pierce Transit system so that others like myself can remain independent in their travels and actually travel where they need to go.
Thank you for explaining that to us, Tony, and it's just so indicative of the power of having folks with lived experience and walking in other shoes. We never would have known that that is a tool that we need to be providing to make our, in this case, transit system inclusive for all riders, if you didn't bring the idea to us and explain to us why it's so essential. So thank you for your patience and your leadership in explaining that and making sure that we persevered to pilot it. And as you said, it's a pilot, and we're going to move it throughout the transit system thanks to your leadership.
Thank you.
We have Larry Levine in our Zoom room. Larry, with the Executive Director with Forever Green Trails, is also here to help accept this proclamation. Larry?
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. My name is Larry Levine, and I'm the Director of Forever Green Trails, a nonprofit organization that seeks to provide safe and inviting active mobility for all ages, abilities, and income levels through the excellent work of Disability Rights Washington and its amazing Disability Mobility Initiative project. I've become more aware of the difficulties that disabled people face in basic mobility throughout our communities. As an able-bodied person with the financial means to live in a location with sidewalks, bike facilities, and transit service, let alone to own and operate a car or use car share, it's easy to take these things for granted and forget that for millions of Washingtonians, that is simply not the case. The hardships that non-drivers or transportation insecure people face, regardless of their physical ability, can be the difference between being able to get to work, school, medical appointments, or even accessing food. And also, I might add, to contribute their many talents and skills to society. Too often, non-drivers are not officially included in mobility planning and decision-making spaces, and that includes your very own Transportation Advisory Commission, which I chair. Policies, priorities, and maybe most important of all, fiscal decisions are most often made without the direct participation of the non-driving and disabled populations who are most impacted by them. We should strive to increase such representation in our decision-making and advisory spaces wherever possible, but should also figuratively bring those spaces and the people who occupy them to sample the lived experience of such populations. That is the genius of the Week Without Driving, which, while open to anyone, is one of the best ways for agency staff and elected officials to improve their direct understanding of some of the mobility barriers faced by many Washington residents. I encourage you and county staff to participate if possible, and I encourage your support of this proclamation. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, very much for all your work. Let me open it up to my colleagues to see what remarks my colleagues have before we take a picture with you all. Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is the third year I've participated in this challenge. And yet again, I failed on day one trying to get to where I needed to be and all of my appointments. But today I'm taking the bus home, so I'm hoping we get done before 6 so that it's light out by the time I get home. But it's one of those things that you just don't understand how the level of complexity when you depend on public transit your life takes on and how much energy you have to spend when you can't just hop in your car. And I think that for me was the most eye-opening thing of really trying to live without access to a car. It's possible in some parts of our county. It's literally impossible in others. But the jurisdiction that I represent, I can get to most of my jurisdiction that I represent via public transit. There's a ferry in there somewhere that gets in the way, which is transit technically, but I can't. Anyways, it's complicated. The point is, until I actually tried it, I just didn't understand. And so I appreciate the challenge. I appreciate the opportunity and the advocacy you continue to do and just making it so easy for those that have never done it before to try and learn, because that's how we do better around policy work. If we've tried it, we have a better understanding. So thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. It's just hard for me. Being a caregiver for someone who's, for Catherine, as she's going through cancer, and as she became more and more dependent on her wheelchair, it became, I know what it's like to have to be that person who's always given a ride or trying to help arrange transportation if you can't be there. Navigating through public spaces and seeing many of the challenges. Having to adapt your own house to fit the ever-changing needs. And it was only for about a year that I got to do that. The barriers are real and they're hard. And as government, we fail at so many levels. Several years ago, when Catherine was much better, we got reports of a crosswalk on Portland Avenue. People would say, cars never stop for us. And we'd report it to the city, and she was on school district at the time, and they'd say, oh no, everything's up to code. And so we went out there one day and videotaped each other crossing, and she went across back and forth and almost got hit each time, crossing with the button. What she wanted to do is in her wheelchair, go back out and do it again. And we didn't get the chance, but we need to be willing to stand up and put our bodies on the line and test these things and see and make those differences. Because we just got to do better. I think that same crosswalk, there have been 2 fatalities from people in wheelchairs over the last 10 years. Because it's just not, it's Portland Avenue, it's literally the most dangerous road we have in our county for pedestrians. Sorry. We just got to do better. In that spirit, Tony, thank you for your advocacy. And because of your advocacy, I think in the next couple of weeks we have coming forward a bill to, on our Transportation Commission, add a position for someone representing disability community. We need to do that on more of our committees. Because it is really clear that while many people think or they perceive or say, hey, I can put myself in that shoe, yeah, that's got to be hard until you're out there trying to navigate it and do it. And we need that voice, Tony, your voice in those committees. And thank you. You make us a better county for it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell. Thank you for your vulnerability and telling your personal story, Vice Chair Campbell. Councilor Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, Marty, definitely know Portland Avenue very well and things. But, you know, I do remember before I drove and working, trying to get on the bus, trying to get to Seattle or get on the bus and how difficult that was. And it motivated me to get my license, to get into a car because it made it so much more convenient, and it was a rite of passage for a lot of us of independence. Now, remembering that, when that's taken away, when you can't drive anymore, you lose that independence. And it makes it much more harder, and you have to get back to it. And that's like what everyone's been saying, where government can make that part easier. If you cannot drive, and all of us will probably be there at one point or another in our lives. I'm dealing with it with my parents. I have a family member who is severely autistic and can never drive. You know, we all know how important, you know, a car is to us, and then this proclamation today of not driving for a week will remind us before we got that driver's license and how convenient it is to just hop on our car and go to the store or go to a doctor's appointment. It just reminds us of that we need to make it easier for folks that cannot drive, that cannot have that privilege of just hopping in the car. So thanks for the reminder. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other remarks? I love that Councilmember Hitchin makes sure that we bring forward the week without driving, and she personally challenges all of us to participate as much as we can. If all 7 days are just not possible, because we have the privilege of making that choice, she challenges us to participate as much as we possibly can, because there's absolutely no substitute to walking in someone else's shoes. And there's absolutely no substitute to the power of lived experience. As Vice Chair Campbell indicated, this council in particular, I have seen, we are truly working harder to really find and appoint people to our many boards and commissions with lived experience, whatever the issue is, whether it be transportation or disability access or whatever, human services, our Veterans Commission, whatever the issue is, trying to be a lot more mindful of appointing people with lived experience and doing the things that we need to do to accommodate for their participation many times. Sometimes that's a stipend so that they can be stipended for their commitment, because maybe they need to spend a little bit more money on transportation to get to the meeting, or a little bit more time to be there, and that means something else is falling off, like cooking dinner or paying for childcare, or something else, right? Which makes it so much harder for them to participate. So but having people with lived experience on any one of our decision-making roles is so important to this council. Today we're focused on the week without driving, and again, there's just no substitute for, in many people's case, doing it for a simple week when others really have to live their entire life really being committed, to they don't have a choice the other 51 weeks of the year. So thank you for your challenge, Councilmember Hitchin. Thank you to all of you who have joined us today to celebrate this and lift this up and help make us better. We're going to join you on the floor here and present you with this proclamation.
We'll just have you guys in the middle, and I think we'll be easier.
Me too. I was like,
and then we're just going to come over here, and we're going to face this way. We get folks surrounding you here from the council, and Cecilia's doing that. You sure are. You're perfect. I don't want to move.
I'm going to take a couple photos here, give a 3-second countdown. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you for
this is a shot for the past 4 days, and it's like, okay, I can relate a little bit to this.
tried to do it in law school because my car broke down and I didn't have money to fix it. So, but I lived in Tacoma, so I could take the bus, and it wasn't a big deal. But, I mean, it was a deal, but you know, but yeah, if you're a little bit out of the convenient area, you know, where the bus stops aren't everywhere. Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, Tony, before you leave, as much as we try, we also fail. We handed you a printed proclamation, which I realized that we can't. I've just talked with communications. We're going to work on getting you a braille.
Thank you.
Because that only seems like the right thing to do. So, and we will try to do better on that in the future. So it's always a learning moment for us here. Yeah. I was looking at that. I was like,
that was slide.
I'm not going to let it slide. So we're going to get you a braille copy of that proclamation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone. And there are 6 more days left for the week without driving. Again, if you can't do all 7 days, do what you can, even one day, trying to walk in someone else's shoes. It's so powerful to learn firsthand, and it'll just make you that much, I think, more of an advocate for a different way. We moved an appointment resolution off the consent agenda. It's resolution 2024-217. Councilmember Hitchen for a motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move adoption of R 2024-217.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt resolution 2024-217. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-217, a resolution of the Pierce County Council confirming the appointment of one new member, Denise L. Wells, to the Pierce County Human Services Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you. Mr. Dominique, do we have Denise?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. We're so used to our appointees being on Zoom. I greatly apologize. I thought you were department staff. I apologize. Denise, thank you for being here in person. We would welcome you to the podium. And we'd invite you to briefly introduce yourself and share why you wish to serve. So please come to the podium. We do have the benefit of your application materials, your background material, but it's so great to meet our appointees, especially in person. We hardly ever get this opportunity these days. So welcome.
Thank you very much. My name is Denise L. Wells. I want to thank Councilmember Hitchen and all of you council members for allowing me the opportunity to be able to sit on the Citizens Advisory Board. I have been in Pierce County for more than 25 years. I have 25 to 30 family members who live in Pierce County, and so I feel like I have a great opportunity to be able to really add some additional insight, if you will, and help the Citizens Advisory Board. I also work at Metropolitan Development Council, a nonprofit within Pierce County serving the city of Tacoma. I have been there for 10 years. Grateful to have my CEO here with me, supporting me. And I thank you so much for allowing me to be able to serve.
Thank you for being here. Denise, does anyone have any questions for Denise before we open up for a public hearing? Councilmember Hitchen.
Thank you, Chair. Denise, I was thrilled to see your appointment process come across my email. It doesn't cross a desk anymore. It comes across our email, and the fact that you were from I was thrilled just from MDC's perspective to have that voice and experience. And then I saw you were actually from District 6, and I was like, yes, yay, District 6. So thank you for your willingness to volunteer. I know it is a time commitment. And I know they work very hard to make sure they try and accommodate schedules, but you are giving of your time to support and be a voice on behalf of human service providers that helps make us better. So I appreciate your willingness to volunteer. Thank you.
Yes, and I would just like to add from one community action agency to another, being able to work with and help Pierce County Human Services is a real.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing any. We have some formalities to do, Denise. We're going to open this up for a public hearing. Does any member of the public wish to provide comment on this appointment resolution? We'll ask you to come to the podium if you do. Your boss does. You'll have 3 minutes to make your remarks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Denise. Standing before you is a really dedicated person. I've had the honor of working with her for the last year and a half, and the experience that she brings, the level of compassion and care that she brings is just outstanding. Whenever I need something done, I always come to Denise. I'm like, Denise, do you think we can do this? And she's always like, yes, sir. And I just really have appreciated working with her and know that her experience, both with the Roma perspective and Carol and her team, will really benefit from having Denise here. So thank you for thinking of her, and just really excited to support that.
Thank you. Scott, can you say your name for the record, please?
Scott Schubert.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wish to provide comment on this appointment resolution here in chambers? I'm not seeing any. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number 2024-217, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or star 9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Being no further hands, we're going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Are there final remarks? Again, Denise, thank you for your willingness to serve. The space you're going to serve in is so powerful and important. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-217?
Councilmember Denson. Aye. Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 6 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 6 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. Congratulations. Thank you again.
Thank you.
And we're not trying to steal your staff, Scott.
Borrow them. Really clear.
We have 3 other resolutions under the regular agenda this evening. Next up, we have Resolution 2024-205. Councilmember Hitchin for a motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move R 2024-205.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-205. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-205, a resolution of the Pierce County Council approving expenditures of the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Fund for a mobile community intervention response team.
Thank you. Ms. Waterland to introduce this item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the council. For the record, my name is Carrie Waterland, staff for the council. The first resolution that you have before you, R 2024-205, before you for consideration is to approve expenditures that are part of the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Tax Fund, specifically for mobile community intervention response teams, or MCIRT. If you are following along, the staff report is on page 52 of your packet, and the resolution and exhibit, are in front of you on pages 57 and 59 of your packet, respectively. By way of background, in December of 2022, and the reason I'm talking about this is because all 3 of these resolutions, and this one in particular, are out of the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Fund. So by way of background, the Pierce County Council passed Ordinance 2020-138S, which created the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Fund. Consistent with state law, RCW 82-14-460, revenue for this tax may be used to fund things such as mental health services, substance use disorder treatment, and therapeutic court treatment programs and services. The ordinance adopted, in addition to creating the tax fund, the ordinance adopted a planning framework for a 6-year outlook that requires that the Pierce County Human Services Department work with the Pierce County Behavioral Health Advisory Board, also known as the BHAB, to guide the development of what is known as a Behavioral Health Improvement Plan, or a BHIP. The Behavioral Health Advisory Board is also tasked to advise the council on spending underneath the plan and to guide funding priorities over the next 6 years. The BHIP is updated biennially and was submitted to the council for adoption. The Pierce County Council approved the initial BHIP in December of 2021. The 2-year update for the BHIP was initially due to the council September of 2023, yet was extended to March of 2024 when the council adopted adding opioid funding recommendations into the Behavioral Health Improvement Plan. The updated Behavioral Health Improvement Plan was received by the council on August 15th of 2024. There are certain reasons this is not being considered as part of the Behavioral Health Improvement Plan, and I'll go over those briefly. When the Pierce County Council approved the initial BHIP plan in 2021, that identified a few priorities. This particular resolution in front of you talks about the mobile community intervention response teams, and those do fit into priorities that were in the existing Behavioral Health Improvement Plan. They fit in among things as outpatient and community-based services, as well as crisis services for priorities. The plan also indicates that funding recommendations for the use of the Behavioral Health Therapeutic Courts Tax Fund be reviewed by the BHAB. This has happened. The 2024-2025 biennial budget appropriated for this $750,000 for the Mobile Community Intervention Response Team, again, MCIRT. Budget requires that procurement for the MCIRT services be reviewed by council. That review did happen. Proposals submitted in response to the procurement for MCIRT services have also been reviewed by the Behavioral Health Advisory Board, and proposed use of funds are consistent with uses that are allowed under state law for these tax funds and are consistent with the requirements of the budget and consistent with the currently adopted Behavioral Health Improvement Plan. What you do have in front of you, for a little bit of background, is the approval for the MCIRTs. The main priority of MCIRT is to offer the appropriate level of care and case management to individuals who overutilize the 911 system. They also may overutilize emergency medical services and hospital emergency departments. MCIRT will focus on serving individuals who are identified as high utilizers or potential high utilizers of these services, or of any Pierce County emergency or 911 services. The proposal for MCIRT was opened May 3rd of 2024. It closed May 31st of 2024. There was one applicant and one successful bidder, which is Comprehensive Life Resources. The contract date will start after council approves and run through December 31st of 2025. We do have someone here from the department to talk about any questions that you may have. This did receive a recommended approval from both the Human Services Department and the Pierce County Behavioral Health Advisory Board, as well as a due pass recommendation from Health and Human Services on September 17th. There is a de minimis fiscal impact. That fiscal note can be found on page 62 of your packet. And there also is an equity note available on page 54 of your packet. With that, I've concluded my presentations for this resolution, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Waterland. Ms. Bernison, what do you have to add on behalf of the department?
Good afternoon. Margot Bernison, for the record, Behavioral Health Manager, and I don't actually have much to add. I'm just here to answer any questions you all may have.
Thank you. Questions for Ms. Bernison? Councilor Denson.
Yes, thank you for being here. Could you just give us kind of a quick description so folks understand kind of an example of how this would work? Who refers individuals to Comprehensive Life Resources, and what are the services that they get?
Sure. Yeah. So referrals come from all sources. They can come from the police department. They can come from co-responders, for example. People calling 211 could also potentially do a referral. So there's a lot of types of referral sources that come through to MCERT. And with those referrals, what happens is that there's a team that will go and kind of try to outreach and engage the individual who needs some sort of support. So it's kind of trying to figure out what are those steps. I think a great example is somebody, I mean, the one that always comes to mind for me is somebody who's utilizing the 911 system maybe too frequently, or it's not quite a crisis to the point where they need to be calling 911. And so the team can sit and work with that person for an extended period of time, sometimes up to 6 or 8 months, to kind of help them get connected to services and help them get their needs met, and help kind of follow through with those treatments and getting them kind of connected to services throughout our community that are there that they may not know about or that they just haven't been able to access in the past. So they kind of go in and do that level of engagement and trying to help them with some of that kind of pre-crisis work, I would say.
Excellent. This is something I hear about from some of our rural fire departments in particular that are, like Key Peninsula, for example, has a very small fire department. And there are some individuals in the community that they spend a lot of time with that maybe the firefighters, as awesome as they are, aren't trained in all of the community resources that might be able to address, the underlying reasons why the individuals are calling. So this could really, really help free up their time to be able to respond to other calls in the community and help these individuals get the services they need.
Yeah, and we've been seeing it in different ways, but MCERT is one of the programs to kind of help that. Some of the other fire departments in our area have brought in social workers to also be that point person, but yeah, this is another extension of those services. And they're also focused on healthcare and behavioral health, so it's across the board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Councilor Denton. Ms. Bernison, you know this question's coming from me, which is, when will be the start date for in this case, the contractor Comprehensive Life Resources?
Yeah, of course. My understanding, so our RFP had indicated that the start date was supposed to be July 1st, but because of the process, it needs to start after you guys approve it. So for this current contract, it would be after it's approved by you all as the start date.
Any other questions? I don't see any. Thank you. We're going to open up for a public hearing on this resolution to approve funds for Mobile Community Intervention Response Team. Any member of the public wish to provide comment? Not seeing anyone come to the podium. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member of the public I'd like to provide comment on proposal number R 2024-205, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
With no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Are there final remarks by council members? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-205?
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The results of the roll call vote is 6 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 6 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. We next have Resolution 2024-206. Councilmember Hitchin for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move R 2024-206.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-206. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-206, a resolution of the Pierce County Council approving expenditures of the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Fund for behavioral health navigation services.
Thank you. Ms. Waterland, to brief the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the council. What you have before you, as the title implies, of Resolution R 2024-206 is approving expenditures of the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Fund for behavioral health navigation services. The background, if you would like for me to repeat it, I am able to, but does remain the same given that these are out of the same fund. But I will go into why it is appropriate, if you so choose, to approve these funds moving forward today. As I stated before, the initial BHIP was approved in December of 2021 This plan identifies things such as prevention, community-based services, and crisis services as priorities. The behavioral health navigation services do fit in with these existing priorities in the behavioral health improvement plan. The plan also indicates that these funding recommendations for the behavioral health therapeutic courts funds are reviewed by the BHAB. This has occurred in this case. The 2024-25 biennial budget appropriated $125,000 for this purpose. Budget requires that procurement for behavioral health navigation services be reviewed by council. This review did occur. Proposals submitted in response to the procurement for the behavioral health navigation services have been reviewed by the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. And lastly, proposed use of the funds is consistent with uses allowed under state law, is consistent with requirements of the budget, and consistent with the adopted behavioral health improvement plan that you already have in front of you. The primary priority of behavioral health navigation services and programs are to help 211 callers with navigation and support in finding, contacting, and applying for behavioral health services, essentially before those problems escalate into a crisis situation. The proposal for behavioral health navigation services opened on May 6th and it closed on May 20th of this year. There was one applicant and one successful bidder, which is the United Way of Pierce County. And we do have the department here to answer any questions that you may have. Human Services Department, Behavioral Health Advisory Board recommended approving this. This did receive and is coming to you with a due pass recommendation from Health and Human Services on September 17th. There's a fiscal note, which is a de minimis impact, available on page 73 of your packet, and an equity note available on page 65 of your packet. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Bernison, what do you have to add on behalf of the department?
Again, Margot Bernison, Behavioral Health Manager. I have nothing to add on this either. I'm just here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council members before we open up for a public hearing? Not seeing any. This is a public hearing on this resolution to release funds for the Behavioral Health Navigator Services. Any member of the public wish to provide comment? We'll start here in council chambers. Not seeing any. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any, excuse me. For any member of the public wishing to provide comment on proposal number R 2024-206, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or star 9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Ms. Bernison, I do have one question, and trying to, we're trying to spend a lot of time here trying to figure out how we improve systems. You've been tracking this with the council. We had a committee meeting this morning about a big effort to try to support the Human Services Department and how can we improve contracting systems to support our human services agencies quicker, make life easier for staff, make life easier for providers and those they serve. In this case, I believe the staff note indicates that the procurement closed. We did a procurement on all three of these.
Yeah.
We did a procurement on this, and this one closed on May 20th.
Yes.
What took so long to get this to council?
I don't know the date it was turned into council. I want to say it was in early July or the end of June. But in the meantime, we had to make sure they were closed, have them voted on and approved by the Behavioral Health Advisory Board and go through that process as well, and then write the resolutions to get them to you.
Maybe it was those steps that added the time for it to get it entered into the electronic data system. And
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, yes. When we end a procurement process, then there is probably an added 6 weeks on to get it voted on and approved and assigned, like our recommendations created. So
thanks for helping us understand that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All good for us to take in as we continue to take very seriously this effort to condense timelines in every possible step to try to get dollars out the door faster, save time all around. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-206?
Councilmember Hitchin?
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell?
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger?
Aye.
Councilmember Denson?
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera?
Aye.
Councilmember Mello?
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 6 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 6 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. Our last resolution this evening is Resolution 2024-207. Madam Councilor Hitchin, for a motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move R 2024-207.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-207. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-207, a resolution of the Pierce County Council approving expenditures of the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Fund for certified community behavioral health clinic expansion and implementation.
Thank you. Ms. Waterland, your last one for the evening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Still me, so thank you. Happy to be here. For folks following along, on page 74 of your packet is where you can find this staff report. As the name implies, what's before you is consideration of approving expenditures of the Behavioral Health and Therapeutic Courts Fund for certified community behavioral health clinic expansion and implementation. On page 79 of your packet, you can find the resolution, and on page 81 of your packet, you can find the exhibit. The background remains the same because this is the same funding source, the same process. It has met these same kind of benchmarks and thresholds as the other two resolutions. For this particular one, the existing behavioral health improvement plan identifies outpatient treatment, community-based services, both as priorities. This particular resolution and services would fit into those priorities. The plan also indicates that funding recommendations for use of these funds be reviewed by the BHAB. That has occurred in this case. The 2024-25 biennial budget appropriated $600,000 for the use of this service for certified community behavioral health clinic services. The budget requires that these services be reviewed by council. The procurement be reviewed by council. That review has happened. Proposals submitted in response to the procurement for the CCBHC services have also been reviewed by the BHAB. And lastly, proposed uses of these funds are consistent with all of the other laws that I've laid out for you with the other two resolutions. CCBHC, just for a little bit of background and acclimating you on what you're considering, is a federally designated clinic that provides a comprehensive range of mental health and substance use disorder services. The primary priority of a CCBHC is to serve individuals from all areas of Pierce County, regardless of a diagnosis or insurance status. And they serve folks with telehealth and community-based care that is provided when needed and when appropriate. The proposal for the CCBHC services opened on July 19th and closed on August 2nd of this year. There was one applicant and one successful bidder, which was Comprehensive Life Resources. In this case, the RFP actually stated that the contract effective date was the date that the contract would start, and it has it going through December 31st of 2025. Human Services and the Pierce County Behavioral Health Advisory Board recommend approving, and this is coming to you with a due pass recommendation out of Health and Human Services on September 17th. There is a de minimis fiscal impact, and that can be found on page 84 of your packet. And lastly, an equity note is available on page 76 of your packet as well. That concludes my last presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Waterland? And we'll see if you have anything to add, Ms. Bernison. Councilor Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. When we talk about a federally recognized provider, how many of those do we have in our county that could have applied for this?
This is what I can tell you, is that at the current time, as of today and as of the time that the request for proposals were being drafted, there was one certified community behavioral health clinic in Pierce County, which is Comprehensive Life Resources. At this time, the federal government that does the actual certification and deeming of that status is not and will not be opening up that opportunity until sometime in 2025 for expansion. So there is not an opportunity for another CCBHC to be present in Pierce County until at earliest 2025, when the federal government reopens that opportunity.
Okay, and then this contract goes out until after that date? It goes out into 2025?
Through December of 2025.
Okay.
is what it is projected to do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Bernison, anything to add on behalf of the department?
Again, nothing to add on behalf of the department, just here for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any. We have a public hearing now on this resolution, 2024-207. Any member of the public wish to provide comment, please come to the podium. Not seeing any. Mr. Dominique, anybody in our Zoom room?
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number R, 2024-207, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And we have one hand at this time, phone number ending in 075. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Roxy Giddings. I can't let this go by without having someone from the community at least say this is a good thing. All three of these are really important. And when we can get behind the problem, instead of always fighting it after it happens, it seems to me like we can save ourselves a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of heartache. So I appreciate your voting for this, and I really appreciate it being all of you voting for it. So thanks.
Thank you for your comment.
And there are no more hands at this time, Chair.
Seeing no hands, we're going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Ms. Bernison, I know this wasn't your decision, but just following up on Councilmember Hitchens' questions about, in this case, a very unique provider by all accounts. I think this it's so clear that this should have been a decision by the executive to be a sole source contract. It would have saved 9 months of work by staff, the Behavioral Health Advisory Board, the provider in this case who spent I don't know how many hours filling out an application. It just is the epitome of the reason why there's the ability to do sole source contracting in very legitimate ways where this is, in this case, the only provider allowed by federal law. I just do not understand why we put staff, community members, and this provider through unnecessary work when we could be providing the resources for them to spend their valuable time on countless other things. So again, we have a theme going on around here these days about trying to improve processes, use public resources more wisely, and this is a classic example of where we think we could do so. This was not your decision, but we hope the executive and his team hears these opportunities for improvement to save taxpayer money and save heartache and time from our very valuable provider community. Any other final remarks? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-207?
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Dunson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchen.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The results of the roll call vote is 6 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 6 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. Thank you for completing these contracts for these valuable services. Under Section 9 ordinances, there are none this evening. We are at Section 10, Community Forum. Community Forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any topic that is of significance to or affecting Pierce County government and that did not appear for final action on today's agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit. We ask you to state your name if you would like it on the record and to address all your comments to the chair. We'll start with those in council chambers. Does any member of the public wish to participate in Community Forum here in council chambers? Not seeing anybody get up. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member who would like to participate in Community Forum this evening, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And we have one hand at this time. Last name Smith. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
April Smith, District 5. I just wanted to thank Councilmember Hitchens for coming out to the Healthy Hosmer event this past week. It was really nice to have her show up unexpectedly, and for all that she does and all of you do for the homeless. So I just wanted to come and say thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing that.
There are no more hands at this time, Chair.
With no further hands, we're going to close the community forum portion of our meeting. We're at section 11, other business and announcements. Is there any other business or announcements from council members? Well, we're going to remind folks every week because it's a big deal and we want to limit the amount of people who get stuck in this. So please be aware that I-5 through Fife will be closed in both directions overnight on Friday, October 4th and Saturday, October 5th. This starts at 10:30 p.m. and goes to 8 a.m. both days, Friday and Saturday, October 4th and Saturday, October 5th, again, beginning at 10:30 p.m. and ending at 8 a.m. We really don't want you to get stuck in this. Washington State Department of Transportation is constructing a new bridge over I-5 in Fife. And the closure will continue the following 2 weekends, overnight on Friday and Saturday through October 18th. Please keep this closure in mind when traveling through the area. Not seeing any other hands. Ms. Long, is there any other business for council this evening?
That's it. Thank you.
With no further business before the Pierce County Council, we are adjourned.